Hey, we are live. You have managed to join us for Coffee with Humans on a great Saturday with my new friend, David White. Welcome to Coffee with Humans.
Thank you, Jason.
Well, as the intro says, we're hoping to make the world a better place one conversation at a time. We have succeeded so far, so don't let me down. I'm kidding.
I'll do my best. No pressure here, folks.
Well, we true to form have just met about 8 minutes before we went
Yep.
live, and
Yep.
to me, that's a beautiful thing about Coffee with Humans. I think, well, first of all, another gentleman who's been on Coffee with Humans, he's shouting out saying, "Hey there!" And if anybody else has other comments or questions that you'd like to throw out there, absolutely during our conversation, you're welcome to do that. The point of Coffee with Humans, and I think I sent this to you in an email, David. It's kind of like people meeting around a business function or a group, like a church function or a family function, and a friend walks in, and then you're walking around getting food or something like that, and it's like, hey, to not be awkward, let's have a conversation. But no, normally people aren't invited into those conversations, and it's my hope that when two people walk together on a journey for just a period of time, if they're intentional about making the world a better place, creating something good in that moment, then I think we have the power to do that. So that's why you're on here, at least for me. But I'm curious, why did you click the link?
Fair question. Actually, I was as I'm watching the intro scroll, I was thinking, yeah, that's exactly why I did. I didn't need any more information than that. I've spent quite a bit of time studying resilience. That's a long story as to why I needed to, but anyway, it's lots of study to it. And supportive relationships are such a massive part of resilience. And when you go into periods like we are right now, everybody knows what period we're in right now. It's a fairly big thing. If you
Right.
haven't picked that up, maybe ignorance is bliss. You don't want to know. But anyway, we're in this season and it's challenging resilience. And so, being able to just open up in conversation and could be talking, I'm sure we'll talk all kinds of things. Could be music, coffee, Brazilian dark roast. It's amazing.
Gotcha.
Uh, could be, yeah, all kind of philosophy, all kinds of things. And just finding ways to share heart and story. It's awesome. I loved it. I loved the intro. It captured me right away. And that's why I wanted to join.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy that you're here. Uh, so this idea of resilience, it seems to be that's a thing that's on your mind recently, and it is timely, I think, for uh, people around the world. I know it's timely for me for sure. This idea that we are in what do people keep saying, unprecedented times.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
buzzword.
Yeah. It's definitely, yeah, there's lots of catchphrases. Back in March, it was the great pause, but I don't know. Somebody forgot to take their finger off the button or somehow. Not sure not sure we can call it that anymore, but, yeah, well, resilience for me, it's been on my mind lately, but it's been on my mind, I think, most of my life. Like, so much longer story in a book available. Uh, um, my dad departed my life more or less to permanent disability when I was 7. My mom passed away when I was 12. And so resilience hasn't been sort of a nice to know. It's been a got to figure this out. And so, you start learning different things about how you can bolster your own resilience. And then it's like, well, how can I share that with other people? Because it's an important topic right now with all the stuff we got going on. So, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Do you
it's a
feel
big deal.
like during this time that you have employed new tactics for resiliency, or how has this time affected you?
Well, one I did. I'm looking at the keyboard behind you, and I have to jump into this because it's a big part of my life. I've done a lot of music throughout my whole life. My mother and I, before she passed away, she used to play the accordion. I played the guitar a little bit, and I played poorly. I mean, I still don't play great, but I played poorly. And but I loved it. And then she, passed away, and so I kind of hung on to that. It was a bit of a memory and a thing I'd worked through. So music was a way of working through lots of different aspects of life. 4 albums over a number of years, and then I took this big pause, like 10 years, where I just couldn't. It was actually kind of painful to do music, and that's another long story. But let's stop there on that one anyway, and say that as of March, hadn't done music for 10 years, and then you come around the corner of this COVID thing, and I had a bunch of business things I had to do, strategies to keep people going, et cetera, for about a month. And then I came home and I looked at my wife and I said, I need to do something. I need to do something creative or I'm not going to be in good shape. Like, you got to know yourself, right? And I just saw the flag go up and a couple of warning signs go off. And so I started writing music, and I wrote 30 songs from April 2nd to May something. Not all of them good songs, Jason.
Well, of course.
but
but all of them meaningful in some way, right?
No, absolutely meaningful for sure. And maybe when I say not good, it'd be like not commercial. I don't know if I'm really reluctant to judge anybody's art. I think when art flows from somebody's heart, it should just be what it is, and it's cool. And so, to have the courage to express through art is already victory, right? So, but I got out of those 30 whatever songs, I did record 10 onto an LP. I went back old school vinyl. I did that. But to the question, some things that you do differently. It was a thing I used to do. I didn't do for a long time, and then I had to go back to it to kind of find, an outlet to just kind of continue to express, to bring some value into the world when you felt like things were, my favorite word for this season is disorienting. I don't know what else to call it for me. It's, things that you expect and all of a sudden they aren't, it's not like that right now. Right. So whatever that is.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, that this idea of disorienting, I think that's a good word. I haven't heard anybody else use that word, but it makes sense to me. I feel like that's a good word. The word I was using was disintegrated.
Yeah.
Like all these pieces are now disconnected, and somehow the point is to, or maybe the opportunity is to bring them back together in a way that just flows. Because all of our habits are disrupted. The things that we knew are disrupted. Where we went on Friday night and Saturday night, and the restaurants we used to go to, those were all disrupted. The people we saw each day, that's disrupted. And now all these pieces, these disparate pieces, are kind of sitting out like a puzzle. And now we have this opportunity to just kind of pull them back together. And what do we want to create? And I think that's of all the things we've gotten this time, it's like this opportunity to create, because these well-worn paths are we're not on those paths anymore.
Very, very true. I mean, if it's just a matter of going back and putting the puzzle together that we were trying to work on, it's some of those pieces don't even exist now. They've been thrown up in the air and scattered, and so to find them, if they don't exist, what are you going to do? So now you have an incomplete picture, and I think that's a pretty fair analogy to say what is the picture that we want now, and what do you want to shape out. At different points of everyone's personal life, we're challenged to sort of reinvent ourselves. This is like reinvention on grand scale or writ large or whatever you want to say, but in smaller picture segments throughout life. I mean, I can think of 5, 6, 7 times, lately 5 in career, like where I've had to pivot and reinvent and try to come up with, what's the vision look like now. And I think that underneath it all, you really have to hang on to a perspective that life is a gift. It's I'd actually I wrote this a little bit, was working around and podcasted it out this morning, but I was saying I'd like to have as much fear of the future as I did the day before my birth. It's a little weird. It's kind of the way I roll.
No, I'm trying to figure out what that means to me, because I feel like it means something very particular to you.
Yeah.
I mean, even the loaded term of fear, right? Some people move through fear, move into fear. Some people move away from fear.
Right.
Some people fear, right?
Yeah, that's
fear
good.
The idea of fear.
Right. Yeah, no, that's right on. I mean, that's exactly right. I a little bit of Enneagram study. I've done some of that, and where you could look at Myers-Briggs or various personality profiles, and you got to say, well, different people translate different events different ways. That's the point of saying all that, and that's easy to come up with that. I guess for me, it's if there's uncertainty in the future, to go back to, like, I'm kind of being tongue in cheek, go back and have as much fear about the future or apprehension or, worry about the uncertainty as I did the day before my birth. For me, that statement sort of puts life into perspective. I didn't control the day I came in. I didn't control what family I was born to, what country I was born into, my skin color, the kind of physical stature I would grow to. Nothing. I didn't fill it. I don't know, unless you did a requisition form, right? I'd like to be a David White and born into the family of the White household, whatever, it's being facetious here, but it's didn't have any of that. And so it's somehow it's so easy in circumstance to lose track of some of that beauty and mystery of life that started right at the beginning with just as a gift. You're breathing, you're alive. It's amazing. Like, look at your hand, it moves. Holy smokes. Like, how does that happen? Those kinds of things.
Totally. I agree that there's a comedian, I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was George Carlin or something like that, but he talked about how everything's amazing and nobody's happy.
Yeah.
And he went into this long thing about how, you stand in line at an airport for, an hour, 2 hours, something like that. And then you put yourself in a metal tube, which transports you to the other side of the world in several hours.
Yeah.
And then lands. And it might be delayed by 30 minutes. And it's like, everything's amazing. That's amazing that you could have the opportunity to wait in line to sit in a metal tube as it flies over the world. And people just aren't happy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's a great perspective challenge, of all the things. I went to Ireland, a year and a half, 2 years ago now. Took some Enneagram training, and really, those kinds of training sessions. I don't know if you've been a part of something like that, but Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, otherwise, but really deep introspective sort of study of yourself and how you function, your fears, your hopes, your dreams, all that kind of stuff. Came out of it with one phrase in my mind that I really wanted to get better at discovering the extra in ordinary. So instead of just thinking of, it seems like we're almost like we're programmed to look for the extraordinary. And yet there's so much extra in what we kind of routinely write off as ordinary. We just blow right past it. We don't even acknowledge it. So, I was talking to somebody recently about music, and I said, don't you find it kind of extraordinary, the music in general, or any kind of art or whatever? You have to be able to hear it, see it, speak it, sing it. You've got all the structures of sound, so you got physics. I got some hydraulic systems working here and ball joints and electrical impulses, and they're all running through. Like, when you just pause and think about what all's going on for you and I to have this conversation. You're halfway around the world from where I am. And by the way, I have a lot of snow on the ground, which you can have if you'd like. But
I'll get mine. Don't worry.
Fair enough. You're in summer there, I suppose. This time of year for you?
It's an odd time of year. It goes from 29 last night to 52 today.
Oh my!
And then probably somewhere around December, January, it'll drop. But we had, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe we had negative 30.
Wow!
During the winter. So I don't know what to tell you about.
No, I get it. Okay,
it's a land of weather indecision.
Fair enough. So anyway, all the extraordinary, that's the point of all that. And I think it's something that's essential for us. So if you look at human DNA, I heard somebody speaking about this once, and they were talking about in terms of, what percentage of DNA difference is there between us and other people and stuff. And it's minuscule, like even to get different skin tones, heights, whatever else, the vast amount, like 99.9% of DNA exists the same with all of us. And then there's these little changes. Well, it's kind of the same thing. Like if you're looking to be like really excellent in something in life, let's say you want to be the next Michael Jordan in basketball or something. And the difference between Michael Jordan and somebody that's not going to ever be Michael Jordan. Gracie's decided she's going to move now, by the way. Goodbye. Okay. Hey, she's my bud. What can I say? Is the difference is I mean, we look at it as this extraordinary difference. I get it, but unless we're able to appreciate the base platform that we have in life, I don't know when we're going to be happy. It's like, anyway, that to your point of the two, I think the airplane probably says it simpler, but my mind kind of goes there, and I go like, man, it's like if I can't find, something to be happy about with all that I have now, not just, I'm not talking about possessions. In fact, that's like, it's not even icing. It's, you have so much in the gifted ability of life that we have to come back to appreciate as extraordinary, but we write it off. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to this idea of music, because
Mhm.
I'm curious. I feel like for me, and I want to talk about the Enneagram too, because I'm fascinated by that. And I've done my fair share of research on that. I've never been to a
Cool.
training or anything, but I
Yep.
love
Yep.
the concepts of it.
Yeah.
Music. You said you took 10 years off of music, but
Hmm.
my guess is it's your emotional outlet, as similarly to how it's my emotional outlet. When I get kind of all bound up and don't know where to put those things,
Yep.
like those 30 songs that you wrote, which most of them are just for you. Uh, that's what I use music for.
Yeah. Yeah, cathartic, right? Working it
Yeah.
out. Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that's been a lot of music was never actually it's almost never been entertainment for me. I did some touring, decided I wasn't going to do 300 days a year on the road. Be like, "Ah." So
Right.
that's not happening. So but it was always about communication of things, so I'd listen to somebody's story, and it would be like, wow, it's how do you get through life? That's amazing. And so I'd end up writing, something out of that. That's one song I'm thinking of. But other things, just little truths that you find along the way, and just you're processing them. And I find that music as an art form really helps you do that. It's got some structure to it that's sometimes not all that forgiving, verse, chorus, whatever, blah. But, but it's also got something, music says something that you can't say. Like if I could just say it, I don't need a song. But if there's either a cry or a shout, or it's got so much emotion around music that really helps you process it at a much deeper level.
Yeah. I read James Taylor's book called Break Shot. I just had to
Oh, that'd
go
be
look it up
awesome.
quick. Break Shot, my first 21 years. It, I it I listened to the audiobook of that on a plane flight from somewhere. Really, really fascinating. The things that have happened in his life and how he used music to process all of the stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like relationships with father and relationships with family and kids, and to I can't remember what he said, but it was basically like, I'm processing all of this junk of my life through my music
yeah. Right
before
on.
you and you're just being kind of introduced or invited into it.
That's a great way to say it, actually. And that's why, when we're having the conversation initially, I say not all of them good songs. I go, well, wait a minute, some of those are just for me or whatever. They're all process, and that's exactly right. I mean, not every song is going to be relatable to somebody else because it's specifically, uniquely comes out of your experience. And so there are artists that stay very, very true to that and sort of avoid the commercial, and they're not all that popular necessarily, but yet they follow their craft and continue to write out of what they are. And that takes courage. I think that's what stopped me for 10 years was I sort of started to try to get to be more commercial, and then I had a couple of political hiccups. We'll just leave those at that, and it got a little painful, and so I backed off. And I think if I was going to give any advice to anybody, I'd say don't put all the weight on the commercial aspect. Like, stay true to kind of that deeper kind of soul connection to music, and just let it take you. It's unless you, and if you're desperately wanting to make an income in it, well, you're already set up for failure. So maybe,
Stacked against you.
that's right. Well,
I
anyway.
no, I totally agree with you. I think one of the key points probably to take away from all that is to understand yourself, and this leads into the
Mm,
Enneagram, right? You have to understand yourself and
right
and
on.
and understand. So, like emotional processing, how do we go about processing all of those types of things? Is it a close friend that we have to speak with? Is it a hobby? Is it music? Is it some sort of art form? And I feel like a lot of emotional processing happens through art.
Hmm.
It's not really a matter of thinking, because thinking gets in the way, because these feelings don't
That's really good.
have are sometimes nonsensical, right? They don't
Yeah.
make sense. They are in conflict with one another. They're here, they're blowing like the wind, they're gone like the seasons, and then they come back. And so thinking that through, or trying to make it scientific, is a it loses some of its
Yeah.
I don't know, some of its joy.
Yeah. I should have talked to you before I did the last album.
Send it to me. We can critique it together.
Well, I think you're right on. I think most of my art has been bound up a little bit in. I had one. It's actually my cousin's daughter was listening to some of my music and said, "Sounds like a little bit like you're inhibited." You know, there's something going. And I think what it is, you're trying to think your way through something to make it all connect, and yet. Some of my favorite songs. There's a YouTube song called "Moment of Surrender."
Okay.
I don't know. You could listen to that song and you could translate it probably 100 ways, and it's one of those songs I don't think that U2 and Bono would ever tell you what it meant. It would be like, I don't know, what does it mean to you? Uh, and I think that's where those are the songs when you listen to them. James Taylor's got a bunch of them. Fire and Rain. I've read several, people's commentaries on what that song means, and what he was writing about. And I'm not sure if he's ever actually said, but it's like, yeah, don't spoil it. There's a cry in that song that's awesome, and just leave it alone. Let's not intellectualize it too much. It just takes you back to my point of it says something you can't say. It's yeah,
Yeah, I
very
think
good.
there's a song, Eric Clapton. Oh shoot, I feel fine anytime she's around me now.
Hmm.
Well, she's around me now, almost all the time. Is that Eric Clapton?
No,
No,
it's James Taylor.
it's late in the evening. She's wondering what clothes to wear. She puts
That
on her
is
makeup and brushes her long
that's
blonde
Eric
hair.
Clapton. You bet.
Yeah, so that one is an interesting one, because it doesn't follow the rules
That's a
of
good point.
songs.
Yeah,
It's not verse 1, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 3, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus, right? It's it's
yeah,
not following the rules. It's telling a story,
yeah,
and yeah, it's telling a story about one of the women that he was dating at a particular time,
yeah.
and that night, and it's all of those events actually happened, and it's about a particular woman. And
That's cool.
that was his processing. And I think she looked back on that, if I recall, and was felt this moment of, they're not together obviously, but she felt this moment of privilege, even looking back on it, like, yeah, that I would be someone's muse, right, for their
Yeah, no,
creation that
totally.
they put out into the world. That's
Yeah,
bold. And why not just love that? Why not just fall in love with that journey?
yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, in fact, we all, I think we know, where it's well established anyway, that one of the mindfulness, or one of the major contributors to personal resilience, is to sort of be present. And that's a great example of presence. It's like, in this moment, in that time where I am right now, here's what's going on, and to have captured it in art, sort of like it honors it or something, and it holds it in a way. Like, you still move on beyond that point, and there's other experiences that you have and other people that you meet, but it sort of pays homage, or honors a specific moment in time, which is beautiful. It's awesome. It chronicles it as real or something somehow. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
So Enneagram, you said you traveled to do some Enneagram training. What's
Yeah.
up with your joy of the Enneagram?
Well, the travel part, first of all, is kind of chuckly, or humorous. Chuckly. Is that a word? I don't think so.
It is now.
Anyway, okay. It is now, yeah. So,
Funny fun fact: klaxon, Klaxon, klaxon was not a word before 1908, and
really?
then it became a horn. It's the horn that goes auga auga. That's a klaxon. Fun
There
fact.
you go. There you go. I
So
wouldn't have known.
hey, you know, Whatever. You make up your words. It's fine.
Sounds good. So I wanted to take some Enneagram training.
Okay.
And I had studied it or read about it, et cetera. And there were there's an opportunity to take the Enneagram training in two places that I was really interested in. One was San Diego and the other was Ireland. So I went to Ireland. Yeah.
That's not
all
hard.
things being, no, it wasn't very hard at all. And my father was born there, so I actually had a double benefit. I got to go into Dublin and take the course out at Malahide. And then after that week, I spent another week tracing my father's and grandfather's steps through their life in Ireland, which was a beautiful experience. But what I love about the Enneagram is it for me, and I think this is fairly popular, but it helps us distinguish the difference between sort of our essence and our ego. So you've got, what's this pure strength that you've been created with? And so let's just think of it as two sides of the same coin. There's the strength and the weakness are both you. And they're, we often want to mitigate our weakness, but in the direction of mitigation, we kind of try to kill it without realizing that we're actually killing the strength that's bound to the other side of that same thing. And I think that's what I really like about the Enneagram is it really helps me to understand, oh, that's what's going on. That's why I'm doing that. But here's the positive side of that you could find a way to express. And it's a beautiful, I use it a lot in coaching, and it's been helpful for me. And that's why I studied it. And that's why I like to share it. It's just a way of sort of, I resonate deeply with it. And I can, use it with conversations.
Naturally, I have to find out what Enneagram type are you?
Okay. Well, do you want to figure it out, or do you want me to tell you?
You can tell me.
It's almost impossible to figure it out right away because this is the kicker with the Enneagram is we can all use various energies and use them very similarly, but it's why we use them that is the key to the Enneagram. So
I'm going to write down a guess. Yeah,
go for it. Yeah, you bet.
I don't know much about you, but I'm going to write down a guess.
Yeah, go for it. And I'll even give you the wing. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the type and the wing. Okay. Yeah. So type is a 4 and a 3 wing.
Oh, okay. All right. That's not my guess.
Were you close?
I was close. I thought you were 5.
Oh, well, actually, that's interesting because when I go 4 is a core, and I can see why you'd think 5. 5 is very much, you're in your head and very, lots of logic and whatnot. So I think, I borrow from that wing as well. Most of my career, the orphan influence kind of took me into the 3 because you had to be an overachiever to prove your worth and all that kind of stuff. So in the natural Enneagram 4 I find it embarrassing. I don't know if everybody finds the weakness of their type embarrassing. I certainly do. It's this like sort of melodramatic, like everything's dark and, I'm broken. I'm not doing as well as anyone. It's like, come on, let me up for some air. But the beautiful part of it, and that's the part, like back to what I was saying about you want to kill that part. It's like, I don't want anybody to know I have that stuff. Yeah, and on the other side, right? It's the shadow side and all this ugly weakness stuff that hangs out there. But the beautiful part of it is you see life differently and you can interpret it differently. You can go into the dark places. You can bring back stuff into the light so that people can see it. Equanimity is a big part of that. And so, this kind of calm under pressure, it's like, I don't know, I've seen the dark, so this doesn't really freak me out. It's no big deal. So there's all of that goes, man, I sure would want to lose that. It's great. Oh yeah, it's bound to the other stuff. Like you can't, it just is what it is. And so I think that gives us hope. Like, you can have all of us in our types. Like a good friend is a type 1, and it's like, duty, honor, and company. We got to do it perfect. We got to be right all the time, this kind of stuff. And for him to walk in grace has been a gift. Just go, hey, you know what? When you realize you're not perfect, you can actually free yourself to be a good man. This could be great.
Totally.
So we have lots of laughter around that.
Well, I'm a 5W6.
Right on. Yeah. So yeah. The loyalist side is a 6. That's very cool. That's actually, I honestly don't know another 5/6. I have a 6 as a daughter, and I have some good friends that are 5s, and That's an interesting. That's a good combination. So, how do you find what is it for you as you've studied it? What's the thing that's like what drew you in, or how did it help you?
Okay, so as a five, I have a tendency to like to think about things,
Hmm.
right? I like to understand them, and I think the Enneagram would state that the kind of the core fear of a five is that we won't be able to understand our world. We won't be able to be competent enough for it.
Right.
Um, and I don't know that that's fully, for me at least, I don't know that that's fully true. There is a fear. Obviously it's for me the core, the the struggle is fear. Um, it's not necessarily that I won't be competent enough um, for me necessarily, but there's an attachment to there, and I think this goes with the six, right? Which is that there's a fear that I won't be competent enough for the world
Mm.
because I want to do a great job for everybody else. I want to, encourage everybody else. Uh, Sometimes historically to a fault that I won't take care of myself, which is also characteristic of a five, and get trapped in my head trying to getting into a loop of trying to make sure that things are good enough, and then just wanting to get better and better and better at that. And I've come to find through life's experiences and the wandering journey that it's okay to just not be good at things, which has been huge.
Well, that's a massive discovery. I think in all of I've been saying a lot over the last year or so that grace is the most powerful word I know. And it's not, step back from whether you think it's something you say before a meal or some lady's name or something that's attached to religion. Just think of it in terms of the freedom to sort of own without judgment and without fear, and then to just sort of unpack things and reconcile if you need to and move forward. I find it just literally the word when I speak it, just grace. It's like it's like breathing. It's like man, you don't put all of that. And that's the Enneagram's beautiful at, as I was saying, the essence and the ego. So this beautiful part of, and then this ego's kind of proppings of you gotta do this to be validated or earn, or you don't want to look like that. So the ego's trying to protect us all the time. And maybe all of that protection effort isn't all bad. I'm not trying to write it off, but some of it gets in the way and some of it becomes a burden. And so when we're not free to sort of be who we are, it's yeah, that's a tough burden to live with. It's to find grace to be able to breathe and accept that. Yeah, I'm not going to get it right all the time. It's all right.
It can
Who
become
does?
crippling in some
Yeah,
ways.
no, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to say it. It'd be like limping through life the whole time. We all have stuff. We all got baggage, and so I don't know. I'd like to, in a way, even in this conversation, as an example, giving each other the permission to sort of be who we are, and not have to say or be or do anything exactly perfect is a gift to the people that are listening.
Yeah,
Right. So the rest of
I
life,
think so. And I
too.
for me, I've spent a considerable amount of time trying to perfect things, like how to say them and why I want to say them. And that's just something that happens naturally in my head. I rarely
Right.
have a thought, or I rarely have something I'm saying that I haven't actually thought about. And it happens so fast. Uh, and it's kind of funny, when I have a suggestion into something, whatever it is. My suggestion is based on all of the pathways that my mind nearly instantaneously went down and evaluated all in moments to say this is probably the best.
Right on.
And I cannot stop it. I've and that's the tiring. That's where like mental exhaustion can really come in. And
Yeah.
also, I think, and this is for anybody else who's out there who kind of feels this. I often felt like maybe I was weird in terms of disconnection in my life. Like maybe I wasn't fully connected to myself and I wasn't fully connected to other people because I didn't feel all the things that I thought I should feel. I didn't fully I didn't feel like I moved into this connection that some other people felt, just so connected to the moment. And I had a hard time fully connecting to the moment. I was always living outside or beyond the moment, or evaluating the moment, thinking it through instead of just living in it
Right
and
on.
accepting it. And that's still something I have a hard time with, but I can feel it now. I can feel when I'm not there.
Jason, that's awesome. Like I'm actually hearing an executive coach that I had speak into my life during some grad studies work, and he would say, it's enough to come to a place of awareness. You don't actually have to create all kinds of change. If you come to the place of awareness that, of what's happening in you, then it's you just sort of naturally work your way to something that you more prefer or whatever, but you have to understand what's happening, right? So this is really cool. So as an example, I say something to you. So a four has to let's just play with this a little bit. A four has to come up with something authentic. We have to be authentic.
Okay.
So I want to come up with something that, is unique, right? And so I say, hey, I'd like to have the same amount of fear of my future as I do the day before my birth. And so a four talking to a five, the five goes, well, that depends on how you evaluate fear. Like, it's perfect. So you literally have a four and a five operating exactly out of their function. And that's how that grace, then you have to have grace because you're going to see it differently. But man, what a better picture. So we're actually sitting there talking with about the same sort of thing from two different perspectives and with two different filters. And that's what I love about, like, if you use an Enneagram in a team setting or something, it's kind of like trying to help people see that they're not trying to be an ass, whoever is on the other side of the table from you. You want what they have to say because it's going to help you see a better picture, a fuller picture. Well, look at that. I can accept my imperfections. Fuller picture of whatever you're looking at. So but we get, even in our marriages or our friendships or whatever, we get into the situation. I see what I need to see. I know what I need to know. You have it wrong. Get out of my way. You're just an annoyance. Instead of being more open to, well, I don't know, help me see what you see. It's a great phrase. That phrase, help me see what you see, is an enabling phrase that we've started to use in our company. A friend of mine and I started bouncing it back and forth, and we really like it. It just comes out of us, and it's an invitation then, like, so when you're saying, well, I'm not sure, literally my mind went to help me see what you see. And I'm going, yeah, I guess that's true. Cause you'd have 9 different perspectives, well, more maybe,
Yeah.
Around that one issue of what is fear.
Well, and
Very
that's a
good.
challenging, it's a courageous and challenging place to go into. And I think requires patience. I think that word comes to my mind. And then like the word you brought up, which I think, which is great, the word grace, which, just kind of covers things, covers the imperfections, and allows space, right, for wandering. The game, I don't know if you played this when you were a kid. That game on the I think I played it in gym class as a child, with a big parachute and it had a hole in the middle. And then we all gathered around the parachute and we all pulled on the parachute. And then they threw all these balls on top, and then we'd like throw it up and down. And all these balls are popping, right? And the whole point was to get the balls through the hole in the middle. But the only way the game worked was to have somebody on the opposite side of you pulling in the exact opposite direction, because that held the parachute up, right? And if anybody
Got it.
let it down, the game doesn't work. All the balls fall outside. And I believe that if there's any good principles, among the good principles of living life, is to come to the respect for our own viewpoint and how that might be directly opposite from the person next to us.
Yep.
And it's necessary because to play the game of life, to make it through and see as many perspectives as we can and grow into our weaknesses and grow into our strengths, we must be fully pulling in the direction that we can, while accepting that someone else is fully pulling directly across from us. And then there are people all around the outside that are kind of pulling to the right, kind of pulling to the left. But if we all pull and play our roles, then I think we end up in a better space.
That's a great analogy. I haven't played the game. I can see it in my mind now as you're describing it. And yeah, I had no experience with that, but that totally makes sense. Great analogy.
It's a kid's game,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
I've talked, you know, politics here in the States is a mess. And it's supposed to be. And you know, people think it's not supposed to be. And I'm of the exact opposite opinion, which is like, no, it's supposed to be. The fact that we have a privilege to have differing opinions, we want that. We want somebody else with an exact opposite opinion, and we have to just meet in the middle. That's the whole system.
That's actually okay. So, coffee with humans, you can do that with this.
Okay.
Just a quick analogy: put coffee cup on the table between us, and sign on this side. I won't tell you what it says yet, but sign on this side. I don't see it. I go to grab, or maybe on this side it's better. I go to grab the handle, take a sip out of my coffee cup, and you, if you actually have any respect or appreciation for me at all, might tell me to not grab that handle or whatever, stop, whatever. And usually, when somebody says stop, we react. It's like what? It's coffee. Like, what's the
Right.
big deal? You know. So anyway, with the analogy that I've done with groups is you put the sign on the other side that says wet glue. So I can't see that. You can. And I just
Yeah.
need, and you know, you gotta, like, sometimes we gotta say, whoa, just a second. We would have a conversation just to make sure, like, is it this that's wet glue? Did somebody just prop that sign up from a project they're working on? It's nothing to do with this or what? But we better know, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah.
We
Yeah.
require other people who don't see the
What we
same
see.
things that we see.
Right.
They see it in a
And
totally different way.
right. Yeah. And we have to be able to have, I think it tastes graceful discussions. I've tried on social media. I'm really working at not being so involved in the outcome of the discussion and more interested in the people in the discussion. And that helps then to de-escalate some things and get real conversation going. It's a challenge though. There's so many people. I mean, literally, you know, you get responses that come back. I won't quote them. That just doesn't feel appropriate here, but it's
not.
like, yeah, no expletives and all kinds of stuff, right? And it's like, man, like, why did we? Where did we stop having the license? You know, taking the license to beat people when we disagree with them. It doesn't make any sense to me, but
It short
yeah,
circuits our learning, I
it
think.
does. Yeah, it impairs us for sure. Yeah.
For sure. And that does a disservice to us, ourselves, first and
Mm,
foremost. Naturally, it has an impact around us, but why would why there, I can think of, uh, I can think of things that we've learned through time as a collective, right? So, I think it was George Washington crossed the Delaware River, right? Years ago. You're from Canada, so you don't know these things, but it was super
Actually,
important.
I know that much. I'm not sure I
Okay.
know what he
Well,
said
he crossed
exactly.
the
What you're
Delaware
talking.
River, right? And it's
Got
kind
it.
of
Yeah.
important because George Washington, you know, ended up being president and like working,
Hmm.
starting us off on a good foot.
Yeah.
However, the man died shortly thereafter from pneumonia, which is a shame for sure. But the even greater shame is why he died from pneumonia. He
Hmm.
likely died from pneumonia because medical care at the time involved things like bleeding you out to get the bad things out of you, which is very difficult to recover from pneumonia when you're also being treated medically wrong, completely wrong. And now we would look at this, and we're only 240 years old or whatever. Like
Sure.
we would look at this now and be like, "What the hell were
Wow.
you thinking? This makes no damn sense." So there is something that we all collectively agree to now, and I don't know what it is. But
Yeah,
we're
that's a
somebody's
yeah.
going to look back on this moment. They're going to go, "What the hell were
What?
you thinking? It makes no damn sense." Right?
That's very good. Yeah, that's
And
exactly
we
right.
don't know what that is.
Don't know
I
what we
don't
don't
know
know.
what it is, right?
That's right.
And worse, and sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm like, no, right? I know this is wrong, but I'm gonna do it anyhow.
Yeah.
But there are all sorts of things that we completely believe, and we're just so wrong, and we'll find out
Mhm.
later or not.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll be dead. But in that moment, it's like, okay, I have an opinion, I have a viewpoint. It could also be completely factually wrong, as much as I believe it.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's I had this discussion. Let's see, here's a 4, gonna try this out on a 5, so brace yourself. So
Okay.
I had this discussion with one of my profs in grad study, and I said, well, would it be fair to say that we discover truth, that we don't really dictate it?
Mm.
And the response back was, no. We find now that through quantum physics, we can dictate truth. And I was, I'm trying to really, wouldn't that just be another level of discovery? Like, I can't get my head around dictate. So if you can accept that it's a discovery, then you also can accept that you may or may not have it all. Like, it's just like, just lean in and see what more you can find. It's, yeah, I don't know. Like, I be like, I don't know, maybe this is a stupid example, but if my mother's name was, Verna or something, as it was, I can't dictate what it was. It was what it was. That's a dumb example, maybe, but there are certain things that, they're just like, I don't know, you can't dictate that. It just is what it is, right? You can discover it. I could think her name was Sylvia or something. I could call her Sylvia all the time. She doesn't respond. I don't understand why she doesn't respond. It's like, maybe you got it wrong. Oh, okay.
Well,
Bad example.
No, but I just read my news feeds and sometimes read their articles because they're interesting. But one of the things that came up in my news feed today is that something like we are 2,000 light years closer to a big black hole than was previously calculated. And the first thought that came through my mind as a 5 was like, oh, we're wrong again. That's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like, all right, so we were wrong the first time, but we thought we were right, and we were so wrong. We were 2,000 light years, which is a meaningless number to most of us.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And probably 50% of the listeners here don't even know what a light year is anyhow.
Yeah.
Which is that's no harm, no foul.
No, exactly. That's right.
We never deal with these things at all.
No, that and $2 will get you another coffee.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And yet there are all these, I just find as a 5, I find it fascinating that people are even thinking about these things. And I love reading it, like about how some failed satellite launches turned into a calculation of gravity's effect on time, and how they made their calculation 30 times better because these failed satellite launches, they didn't reach geosynchronous orbit, which would be a clear, a circular orbit around the Earth. Instead, these two satellites reached an oval orbit, and so the orbit shifts by 5,600 miles every day, twice a day.
Oh, wow!
As it rotates, as it goes around the Earth, and they were able, because these atomic clocks are off by like 1 second in a million years or something like that. They're so finely tuned. That they were able to calculate and come up, and understand that Einstein's original, hypotheses about gravity affecting time. Oh yeah, it's absolutely true. They had figured that out before, but they calculated the precision of that calculation by 30 times greater, because over the course of like 3 or 5 years or something like that, because they calculated every time this thing went through this, orbital change, that time changes depending on its gravitational pull. But like a lot of people would care nothing about that. What they don't understand is that calculation actually enables GPS to be calculated even tighter.
And that becomes pragmatic now.
And it's a massive issue, because they have to do these calculations constantly to figure out the gravitational changes, and have to take that into effect to make GPS even work. But like, back to this idea that everything's amazing, nobody's happy. It's there's somebody somewhere thinking these things through and correcting us as we go, and understanding that we're wrong. We just don't know in what ways and to what degree.
Yep.
And yet we become better through time. If we can do that scientifically, why can't we do that emotionally? Why can't we do that mentally?
Good
why
point.
Can't we do that relationally? Isn't that part of the process of living, to just go, well, I was so wrong 5 years ago, and now I'm better.
That's really I actually love how you brought that through. It's I just had this discussion with a good friend who's a peer coach, and she was saying that she was really kind of wrestling with the being and doing, those two words, and how we, in some ways, we act like we're human doings, not human beings. And then, but our discussion went to, there's a being that gets involved in a doing, and then it's unto a becoming. And I like the fullness of the three. It's then there's purpose in all three, right? It's like our being impacts our doing impacts our being, and it's all unto our becoming. And so we get to choose. It's been kind of a theme throughout this whole conversation of what's the new future that you want to be as a person, as a family, as a community, as a society, as a world. And yeah, to be open is going to be far better than I don't see a resilience, actually. I don't see a resilience in just being hard. Like, hardness breaks. The harder you are, the more you break. And I don't, I know every analogy falls off at a point, but I think that's a general statement of resilience that I would accept. Resilience, adaptability would be a better word than hardness. And there's another phrase that gets used a lot, just to throw this out there too, for what it's worth. But this whole bouncing back idea of resilience, it's not that it's not, I like the sentiment of it. I get it. You've been crushed. You want to bounce back. That's good. But if you just bounce back to where you were, then you are standing now where the world no longer is, because everything's moving forward. So it's got to be, how do we, so it becoming and changing, even taking the what we would classify as bad things that happen in our life, whatever that really is, and understanding that there's lots of good that comes out of it. So just like your analogy there, you had this failures that all of a sudden helped you to understand, something that really changed and increased the ability to more accurately calibrate GPS, which makes a difference here and there, and on and on. And that came out of failure. So how many times in our life, emotionally, and relationally, do we, or can we find room to allow failure to be interpreted differently, change a lens on it, look and say, well, what did you learn in that? How did it affect your character, your becoming? And those are that's great framework, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. My for me, my phrase, I think, for this year or period of time, at least, is love your journey. Not, and it's for me, especially because I tend to fall in love with destinations. Like, I've achieved this, I'm done. I've come here. I love, I like this place for vacation. I like this thing that I go to. I like this thing that I eat. Right? Because I've spent so much time thinking it through that I love it. I like that. And then I'm reluctant to leave it. I'm reluctant to move through it. I'm reluctant to discover without holding on to that. And instead, for me at least, as an Enneagram 5, and being Jason, and the things I've done and places I've been and people I know, loving the journey that I'm on has been super important to me. To just say, you know what, this is a journey, and it might be meandering, and I can love that. It doesn't have to be a straight line. It doesn't have to be well thought out, even, because I'm on a journey, man. I'm on an adventure of life. And that's why, part of why I love doing this Coffee with Humans thing. I launched it in April because I felt like the world, or at least people I knew, was somehow becoming hopeless or despondent, and I kind of felt myself sinking into some of these things too. And I thought, well, I refuse to do that. I know how to move through this before. I've done it before. I'll do it again. Like, I'm going to come out of this with strength. And so I thought, well, what can I do? I can talk to people, and I've counseled people, and I've worked with entrepreneurs and small business owners. Like, we can have conversations about anything, and I'm nearly impossible to offend, so I'm not even going to get in arguments. And so I thought, well, I'll throw it out there. Anyone want to have coffee with me? The only rule is no sales calls. And somebody's like, click the button, boom, and all of a sudden it's just like over and over and over and over and over, and like, okay, cool. Like, let's just love the journey together. Let's walk together for a moment and see what we could learn. And I then at one point in time, just where I was at, I put out a video. I was like, I just want to thank everybody out there. It's been healing to have these conversations. And that was for me, right? And it might have been for somebody else too. I don't know. But for me, on my journey, it was healing to meet people and discover what they're up to and love their journey as well, and then feed into one another, like pulling on that pulling on that parachute. Who's across from me, and what makes you tick? you
That's
know
awesome. Yeah.
what can I learn and what can I add in too? Because hey, we're all in the game together.
Yeah. 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 And back to your first question, why did I click? That's a really good example or a summary of exactly what caught me. It's, you can go into this, and lots do. I mean, during lockdown, some don't have the capacity to reach out at all. So it's not just the physical lockdown; they're literally locked down in lots of other ways,
Mm.
and that's dangerous for sure. But it's also almost like a forfeiture of something. It's we're so wired for community and interaction, and we learn so much from each other. It's a tragedy to see all that kind of get suppressed or whatever. So this is great. I mean, getting into a conversation literally, an hour ago, whatever it's been, we hadn't met each other, and to be able to, and I don't consider myself to be a great conversationalist at a party. I was partly terrified when you were saying, well, it's kind of like this. It's like, oh boy, where's my wife? Hang on.
Yeah, where's the social one?
That's right. But
the friendly one that people like. I have often felt like that.
Yeah, well, it's true, but what we have here though, and I think this is a really important point actually, and it's happening just sort of naturally. So you've got a couple of guys that are wired differently as 4s and 5s, but they have a fairly congruent value base for how do you tackle this need for resilience. How do you ensure that not just you get through. For me, music was definitely like that, but I'm also writing songs to encourage other people to get through, and that's what you're doing. You get into this to how you have approached it in the past, and you've been able to work through it, and then it's obviously having an impact for others. For all of your guests, I've certainly been impacted, and for all of your listeners. So it's a leveraged impact as well, which makes things, I find that fascinating. That we often forfeit in the work that we do every day. We sort of miss that, as I was saying earlier, the extra and the ordinary, and we think that maybe our job might be we just clean places. Actually, I heard a story about this. It was a study that was done in hospitals that the housekeeping staff that could connect or actively connected what they did to making somebody's life better had resilience scores off the charts and expressed a higher degree of joy than the ones that came and just, I got so much to get done before my coffee break and before my lunch and before I go home, and those kinds of things. But connect meaningfully to, if I was a patient, would I want, clean linens or a clean bathroom to use, or and these people that often go then above and beyond, and they might bring flowers in for some of the patients or some whatever it is. So seeing our vocation as a way to positively impact the world, whoever's in our circle of influence, those are the powerful awarenesses that can come to us. So this is one here. As you do what you do, as you consult with businesses, it's the same thing. You can be speaking to business about the technical challenge that they have, or the HR challenge, or whatever it is that you're working with them on. But there's also the way that you do it that has an impact with them, and the person that you bring into the equation. And
yeah,
that's great.
In our final couple minutes here, how do you impact your world around you? What do you
do? I guess you know what I actually.
I know you have a website.
Yeah, I have a website.
But I purposely do no reasort on people.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I have a website. I do a blog. I do a podcast. I'm a COO in a company, and my business partner and I set up the company to have a positive impact in people's lives. We actually, profit to us is the way that we get it done, as opposed to the outcome. It's without it, you're not in business, so you have to have it. But if that's your goal, then you sacrifice things, and that's not anyway. So that's our wiring. And so that's, all of those people. We have 300 employees or something right now. And so those are all impacts, right? Each one of those relationships. So I've done keynote speaking, all kinds of stuff. And lots of times it was one of the other things that intrigued me about your concept here about Coffee with Humans is something I've said is, I put all this work into a keynote speech or a blog or a podcast or whatever else. And sometimes I believe I could have as much impact if I just sat down with somebody for coffee, because it's like, just have that deeper conversation. But then what follows is, and this is what my wife says all the time, I'd like to be a fly on the wall because I want to listen in, right? It's
Right.
like, so it's a combination of those two things that's like, just get real with people and listen. So you've been a great interviewer and asked great questions and brought along a great conversation. And I've really enjoyed listening to what you've had to say too. And I really appreciate, respect that level of dialogue. So that's partly also an answer to how do I impact people? It's like, I don't know, listening, just like to listen and engage. I'm trying to be better at that. I think we show up sometimes wanting to say what we are and do and present this good face, and trying to get better at just going, that matters less than help me understand who you are and what wires you up. So
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm so appreciative that you followed through and clicked the link, and I'm happy to hear that this, Coffee with Humans is making an impact for you.
Yeah, definitely.
That's all I'm looking for. So, well, thanks again to our listeners for joining us. If you want to get in touch with David, it's david@davidewhite.ca. I put the link up there. And have a great day. Thanks very much, David. We will talk soon. Thanks for being on.
Sounds good.
One of the things I love about Coffee with Humans are the raw conversations I get to have, meeting new people just like you. If you or someone you know should be on Coffee with Humans, go to coffeewithhumans.com. Remember, the only rule is no sales calls. This has been Coffee with Humans. Subscribe to get updates or click to have coffee with me. coffeewithhumans.com.